The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass orbiting a dead moon. Inside, 12 alien species sat in their designated sections, each more bizarre than the last. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of pure light. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Daeho Lee, a human man in a simple black suit, holding a datapad that felt heavier than it should. He had practiced his speech for months. Every word was chosen carefully. Every fact was checked 3 times. This was humanity's moment to join the galactic community, to prove they belonged among the stars. Daeho cleared his throat and began to speak. Honored members of the Galactic Council, I come before you representing Earth and all humanity. We have achieved faster-than-light travel. We have established colonies on 3 worlds in our system. We have cured diseases that once killed millions of our people. We seek to join this council as equals, to share our knowledge and learn from yours. Before he could continue, a voice like grinding metal cut through the air. The Volcari High Consul, a creature that looked like a walking suit of crimson armor, stood from his seat. His 4 eyes glowed with something that might have been amusement. Equals, the Volcari said. You barely crawled out of your gravity well 50 years ago. Your fusion drives are so inefficient that crossing your own system takes you weeks. You call this achievement? Nervous laughter rippled through the chamber. Daeho felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. Behind him, Captain Hyun-Woo Kim stood at attention, his military dress uniform crisp and formal. Next to him, Dr. Ji-Won Park clutched her tablet, her knuckles white. Our technology may be young, Daeho said carefully, but we are eager to learn and contribute to. Young? A chittering sound filled the chamber. The Krathan representative, a creature resembling a giant mantis made of black chitin, clicked its mandibles together. Your species spent 300 years using chemical rockets. Chemical rockets. We moved past that stage before your ancestors invented the wheel. More laughter. Daeho could feel sweat forming on his palms. This was not going as planned. Then the worst voice of all spoke. It was beautiful, like music made from starlight. The Lumenth representative floated above her seat, a being of pure energy contained in a vaguely humanoid shape. When she spoke, her words felt like they were being whispered directly into everyone's mind. The technology is not even the true concern, she said softly. We have reviewed your history. Your species still wages war on itself. Even now, conflicts rage on your homeworld. You kill each other over resources, over beliefs, over invisible lines drawn on maps. You are barbarians who learn to build starships. That does not make you civilized. The word hung in the air like poison. Barbarians. Daeho wanted to argue. He wanted to list the years of peace, the treaties, the cooperation that had built Earth's space program. But he knew it would sound like excuses. The council had already made up their minds. The vote was quick. 12 species, 12 votes. The holographic display showed the results in glowing symbols that Daeho had learned to read. 12 rejections. Not even 1 abstention. The Galactic Council denies Earth's application for membership, the Volcari High Consul announced, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Humanity is hereby designated as an observer species. You are forbidden from establishing colonies beyond your home system. You are restricted from most galactic trade networks. You may petition for membership again in 200 years, if you manage to civilize yourselves by then. The gavel came down with a sound like thunder. Daeho bowed stiffly. Thank you for your consideration, he said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. As the human delegation walked back to their ship, nobody spoke. The corridor seemed to stretch forever, lined with windows that showed the cold stars outside. Other alien diplomats passed them, some with expressions of pity, others with barely concealed contempt. Captain Hyun-Woo's jaw was set like stone. Dr. Park was blinking rapidly, fighting back tears. Daeho just felt numbed. They reached their ship. The Soldan, a small diplomatic vessel that suddenly seemed even smaller than before. As the airlock sealed behind them, Hyun-woo's communication device chirped. He pulled it out, read the message, and his expression changed. Something flickered in his eyes. Something dangerous. What is it? Daeho asked. Hyun-woo showed him the screen. The message was encrypted, marked with the highest level of military clearance. It contained only 3 words. Protocol Nightfall authorized. What does that mean? Dr. Park asked. Hyun-woo looked out the window at the council station, at the assembled ships of a dozen alien civilizations at the galaxy that had just rejected them. It means, he said quietly, that we stop asking for permission. Daeho felt something cold settle in his stomach. For years, Earth's leadership had assured the public that their diplomatic mission was the only plan. But now he realized there had always been another option. A contingency. A secret that humanity had kept hidden while the galaxy laughed at them. As the Soldan detached from the station and began its journey back to Earth, Hyun-woo sent a single-word reply to the message. Acknowledged. Somewhere, in the darkness beyond Earth's moon, in a crater that appeared empty on every scan and every map, lights began to turn on. Systems that had waited in silence for decades started to wake up. And in the center of that hidden facility, something massive and invisible began to hum with power. The galaxy had called them Barbarians. Soon, the galaxy would learn what barbarians could do when you gave them a reason. 3 months had passed since the rejection. Earth's colonies in the asteroid belt continued their work, mining valuable minerals and establishing homes for thousands of families. The people there had watched the council vote on delayed broadcasts, had felt the sting of humiliation, but life went on. They had jobs to do, families to feed, futures to build. Then the Volcari Armada arrived. The mining station called New Jeju was the first to see them. 17 warships, each one bristling with weapons that made human vessels look like toys. Station Commander Sungmin Park sent a standard greeting, asking about their intentions. The response came in the form of plasma fire that tore through the station's hull like paper. 312 people died in the first 30 seconds. The second station, Bright Hope, tried to evacuate. They had 15 minutes of warning, time to get most people to the escape pods. Most, but not all. The Volcari ships hunted down the pods one by one, claiming they were potential threats to Volcari territorial integrity. By the time it was over, another 35 souls were added to the death count. Earth's government sent immediate protests to the Galactic Council. They compiled evidence, sent emotional appeals, even begged for intervention. The council met to discuss the incident for exactly 20 minutes. Their statement was brief. The Volcari Imperium is engaged in legitimate territorial reorganization in regions earmarked for proper civilizations. Observer species should focus on managing their homeworld rather than expanding beyond their capabilities. The Council considers this matter closed. On Earth, people watched the news in stunned silence. Then the silence turned to rage. Protests filled the streets of every major city. People demanded war, demanded justice, demanded that someone pay for the lives lost. But Earth's leaders knew the truth. In a straight fight, humanity would be crushed. So they did nothing. Publicly. On the far side of Earth's moon, in a crater called Daedalus, Admiral Sun-hee Choi walked through a hangar that appeared completely empty. Her boots echoed on metal floors, surrounded by nothing but open space and shadows. But she was not alone. Status report, she said to the air. Engineer Young Mi-han appeared from behind a console. Her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Dark circles under her eyes from too many sleepless nights. All systems are operating at optimal levels, Admiral. Stealth fields are holding at 100%. She's completely invisible to every known sensor type. And the unknown types? We tested against theoretical detection methods that won't exist for another 50 years. She's still invisible. Young me smiled, but it was a tired smile. We've been ready for 2 years, Admiral. We were just waiting for permission. Admiral Choi walked forward, her hand reaching out until it touched something solid. Metal, cold and smooth, that her eyes insisted was not there. The Shadow Blade. Humanity's first true warship. 3 kilometers of cutting-edge technology wrapped in quantum stealth fields that bent light, sound, and sensor waves around it like water flowing around a stone. 347 people, Choi said quietly. That's how many died in the Valkyrie attack. The youngest was 4 years old. Her name was Hana. Young me's expression hardened. I know, Admiral. Everyone on this project knows. Colonel Tae Yang Shin approached from across the hangar, his special operations team behind him. They were the best soldiers Earth had ever produced, trained for missions that officially did not exist. My teams are ready to deploy. We can be aboard and operational within 6 hours. Choi looked up at where the ship should be, seeing nothing but empty air, knowing that death and vengeance floated above her head. Begin loading procedures. Full combat complement. I want weapons, ammunition, supplies for a 3-month deep space mission. And get me Captain Hyun-Woo Kim. He's been training for this command since the project began. He's already on his way, Admiral, Shin replied. Hasn't slept since the attack. He requested immediate transfer to active duty. Good. Choi pulled out a secure communication device and typed a message to Earth's military command. It contained only a request for final authorization to proceed with what humanity had been preparing for decades. The response came back in less than a minute. 2 words. Execute Nightfall. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chambers, the Valkyrie High Consul was giving a speech. He stood tall and proud, his crimson armor gleaming under the lights, his 4 eyes sweeping across the assembled representatives. The human infestation has been pushed back to its proper boundaries, he declared. They occupied regions of space that rightfully belong to superior civilizations. This council's decision to support our territorial reorganization shows wisdom and proper judgment. The Krathan representative clicked its approval. The Lumen floated serenely, offering no objection. A few of the other species looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Challenging the Valkyrie was dangerous. The Valkyrie had the largest fleet, the most colonies, the most influence on the council. Furthermore, the Valkyrie continued. We demand that humanity pay reparations for their illegal occupation of space. We calculate the amount at approximately 12,000 tons of refined metals and rare earth elements. The demand was outrageous. It would bankrupt Earth's space program. But no one objected. Dr. G1 Park sat in the observer section, no longer allowed to speak in council sessions. She watched the proceedings with cold eyes, recording everything. When the Valkyrie finished his speech, she stood and walked out. Protocol said she should stay for the entire session, but protocol no longer seemed to matter. She sent a single message from her personal device. It went to every member of the council, to every news service in the galaxy, to anyone who would listen. The message was simple. You have mistaken patience for weakness and silence for ignorance. Humanity has one response to your judgment. In the council chamber, confused laughter followed her message. Some thought it was a joke. Others thought it was the desperate threat of a beaten species. None of them took it seriously. None of them noticed that communications on Valkyrie Prime had just gone dark. Above the Valkyrie homeworld, something that should not exist hung in orbit. Something invisible. Something patient. Something that had been watching and waiting. The Shadow Blade had arrived. Captain Hyun-Woo Kim stood on the bridge of the Shadow Blade, surrounded by holographic displays that showed everything and nothing at the same time. The ship had no windows. No one could see in, and looking out would compromise the stealth fields. Everything they knew about the universe outside came through sensors so advanced that they could count the rivets on a ship 20,000 kilometers away. "Status report," Haiyan-Wu said. His voice was calm, practiced. Inside, his heart was beating faster than he wanted to admit. Commander Biora Kang looked up from her station. "We have successfully penetrated Valkyrie space. No indication of detection. Their sensor grids passed right over us 17 times. They have no idea we're here. Weapon status?" Lieutenant Jinho Yoon smiled grimly. "All systems ready, Captain. 0-point energy cannons charged. Gravitational lances online. Kinetic impactors loaded. I could crack their moon in half right now if you gave the order. Stand down on weapons," Haiyan-Wu said. "We're not here to start a war." "Not yet." Specialist Hae-Won Song, the stealth systems operator, spoke up from her console. "Captain, I'm detecting increased military traffic around Valkyra Prime. They're moving ships into defensive positions. Do they know we're here?" "Negative, sir. Best analysis suggests they're just being paranoid. They've been broadcasting warnings about potential human retaliation for the past week. They think we'll come in loud and obvious, if we come at all." Haiyan-Wu allowed himself a small smile. The Valkyrie thought humanity would attack like barbarians, with rage and noise and easily detected ships. They were preparing for the wrong war. Take us deeper into their territory. I want full reconnaissance on every military installation they have. Map everything. I want to know where they keep their ammunition, where they park their ships, where their commanders eat breakfast. "That's going to take time, Captain," Biora said. "We have time. Earth is safe. The Council thinks we're beaten. Let them think that a little longer." For 2 weeks, the Shadowblade drifted through Valkyrie space like a ghost. They photographed military bases. They intercepted communications. They mapped supply routes and defense grids. Slowly, carefully, they built a complete picture of the Valkyrie military machine. What they found was shocking. "Captain, you need to see this," Biora said one morning, her voice tight with surprise. She brought up a holographic display showing the Valkyrie fleet composition. "We've analyzed their ships. Most of them are over a century old. Their reactors are running at 60% efficiency. Their weapons systems are outdated by their own technological standards." Haiyan-Wu leaned forward, studying the data. "How is that possible?" "They're supposed to be one of the most powerful species in the Council." "They were," said Dr. Ji-Won Park, who had joined the mission as their xenology expert. 50 years ago, they had cutting-edge technology, but they stopped innovating. They got comfortable. They relied on their reputation instead of their reality. Jinho pulled up more data. "Sir, we've intercepted internal military communications. The Valkyrie High Command is worried. They've been faking combat readiness reports for years. Their armada looks impressive from the outside, but most of those ships can barely fight. They're projecting strength they don't have," Hae-Won added. "It's all propaganda and fear. They convinced the galaxy they're unstoppable, so nobody ever challenged them." Haiyan-Wu sat back in his chair, processing this information. The mighty Valkyrie Empire was a house of cards. One strong push, and it would collapse. But that raised a question. Why attack humanity's mining stations? Why risk exposure? The answer came 3 days later when they intercepted a classified Valkyrie Council meeting. Dr. Park translated the alien language in real time, her face growing paler with each sentence. "They're planning to enslave observer species," she said quietly. "Not just humanity. All of them. They see the younger races as resources to exploit. They destroyed our mining stations as a test, to see if the Council would stop them. When the council did nothing, they took it as permission to continue. "There's more," Bauer said, pulling up additional files. "The Volcari have been manipulating council votes for decades. Bribes, blackmail, threats. They've got dirt on half the council members. That's why nobody stands up to them." Haiyan Wu felt something cold settle in his chest. This was bigger than revenge for 347 dead colonists. This was about the future of every species the Velkari considered beneath them. He opened a secure channel to Earth. "Admiral Choi, this is Shadowblade. We have intelligence that changes everything. The Velkari are planning systematic exploitation of observer species. We have proof." Choi's response came back after a slight delay. "Understood, Captain. How do you want to proceed?" "I want to show the galaxy who the real barbarians are." Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council Station, the Velkari were making their next move. The High Council stood before the assembled representatives, presenting what he called evidence of human aggression. The holographic displays showed grainy images of human ships supposedly violating Velkari space. The images were fake, fabricated by Velkari intelligence services, but they looked convincing enough. "The humans are planning terrorist attacks against peaceful Velkari colonies," the High Consul declared. "We demand the Council authorize us to take preemptive military action against Earth itself. We must crush this threat before it spreads." The Krathen clicked enthusiastic agreement. The Lumens floated silently, offering no objection. Other species shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. The vote was being prepared. Then Dr. Park's message arrived. It appeared on every screen in the council chamber simultaneously. A simple text message. "You have mistaken patience for weakness and silence for ignorance. Humanity has one response to your judgment." The Volkari High Consul laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Empty threats from a beaten species. They have nothing. They are nothing." As if in response to his words, the lights went out, not just in the council chamber. Across the entire Velkari homeworld, power grids failed. Communication networks went dark. Military command centers lost contact with their ships. For the first time in 300 years, Velkara Prime sat in darkness. The emergency lights flickered on in the council chamber, casting everything in a sickly red glow. The representatives looked around in confusion and growing fear. The Velkari High Consul stood frozen, his four eyes wide with shock. On every screen, a new message appeared. This one was a video feed. Captain Haiyan Wu Kim stood in the center of the frame, his uniform immaculate, his expression carved from stone. Behind him, the Shadowblade's bridge bustled with activity. "Greetings, Galactic Council," he said. "My name is Captain Haiyan Wu Kim of the Earth Defense Force. You don't know me. You don't know my ship. You have no idea what humanity has been building while you laughed at us." He paused, letting that sink in. "But you're about to learn." The Shadowblade materialized above Velkara Prime like a nightmare becoming real. One moment, the sky was empty. The next, 3 kilometers of human engineering hung in the atmosphere, blotting out the stars. The quantum stealth fields dropped away in a cascade of shimmer and light, revealing a ship that should not exist. Its hull was dark metal, inscribed with symbols in a dozen languages, all saying the same thing: never again. On the planet below, millions of Velkari looked up in terror. Their sensors had detected nothing. Their defense grids had not raised a single alarm. This thing, this impossible vessel, had simply appeared like a ghost, becoming solid. Captain Haiyan Wu Kim stood in the Shadowblade's command center, watching the chaos unfold below. Every communication channel on Velkara Prime was trying to reach them. Panicked military transmissions, desperate civilian broadcasts, government officials demanding to know what was happening. He opened the planet-wide broadcast. His face appeared on every screen, every display, every device capable of receiving a signal. When he spoke, his voice was cold and measured. The voice of someone who had buried 347 people in his mind and would never forget their names. "You called us barbarians," Hyanwu said. "You mocked our technology. You laughed at our achievements. You destroyed our colonies and killed our people. You celebrated our dead and demanded we pay you for the privilege of being slaughtered." He paused, letting the words sink in across an entire world. "You made a mistake. You assumed that because we asked for peace, we were incapable of war. You thought that because we showed you our civilian technology, that was all we had. You believed your own propaganda about human primitiveness." Lieutenant Jinho Yoon brought the weapon systems online. Every targeting sensor locked onto strategic positions across the planet. Military command centers, shield generators, orbital defense platforms. The Shadowblade's weapons could hit them all simultaneously, with precision that would make surgical strikes look clumsy. "Our weapons are now active," Hyanwu continued. "Zero-point energy cannons capable of cracking your planet's crust. Gravitational lenses that can collapse your shield generators from the inside out. Relativistic kinetic impactors that make nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. We could end your civilization in the next 60 seconds." On the planet below, evacuation sirens began to wail. People ran through the streets, not knowing where to go, knowing there was nowhere to hide from a ship that size. Military commanders scrambled to mount a response, but their targeting systems could not lock onto the Shadowblade. It was there, visible to the naked eye, but somehow still invisible to their sensors. "But we won't fire," Hyanwu said, and something shifted in his expression. "Because unlike you, we understand the difference between justice and slaughter. We are not here to kill. We are here to reveal the truth." He nodded to Haewon's song. The specialist's fingers flew across her console, executing a program they had been preparing for weeks. Every piece of classified data they had stolen from Valkyrie networks. Every intercepted communication, every dirty secret they had uncovered. All of it began broadcasting simultaneously. The information flooded across the galactic network. Council communications, military reports, financial records, blackmail files. All of it, laid bare for everyone to see. The galaxy learned that the Valkyrie had been bribing council members for decades. They saw evidence of the planned enslavement programs. They read transcripts of meetings where Valkyrie leaders laughed about culling inferior species. They discovered that the mighty Valkyrie Armada was mostly outdated. Ships held together by lies and desperation. The Galactic Council Chamber. The Valkyrie High Consul watched his civilization's secrets spill out like blood from a wound. His 4 eyes darted around the room, seeing the expressions change on every representative's face. Shock, disgust, rage. The Krathan representative, who had always supported Valkyrie proposals, skittered backward from the council floor, its mandibles clicking in distress. The luminous glow dimmed with what might have been shame. Other species began shouting questions, demanding answers. "This is fabricated," the High Consul roared. "Human lies. Desperate propaganda from a defeated species." But it was too late. The evidence was too detailed, too extensive. Financial transactions matched official records. Voice recordings were verified by independent analysis. The Valkyrie had kept meticulous records of their own corruption, never imagining anyone could steal them. Back on the Shadowblade, Commander Baora Kang brought up new displays. "Captain, we're detecting military movements across Valkyrie space. They're trying to scramble their fleet." "Let them," Hyanwu said. "It won't matter." He was right. As the Valkyrie fleet began to mobilize, 17 more Shadowblade-class vessels materialized across their territory, above their colony worlds, near their trading posts. surrounding their military academies. Each ship identical to the first, each one appearing from nowhere. Each one proving that humanity had not built just one impossible warship. They had built a fleet. Admiral Sun-hee Choi coordinated the revelation from her command center on Earth's moon. Each captain had specific instructions: appear, broadcast evidence, demonstrate capability, but do not fire unless fired upon. They were sending a message, not waging a war. The message was clear. Humanity had been watching. Humanity had been learning. Humanity had been preparing. And humanity was done asking for permission. On Volcara Prime, Hyan Wu continued his broadcast. For 20 years, we have monitored your council sessions. We heard every laugh when you mocked us. We recorded every vote when you denied us. We documented every crime you committed while hiding behind the pretense of civilization. He leaned forward, his eyes hard. You called us barbarians because we fight each other. But we fight over ideas, over resources, over the future we want to build. You call yourselves civilized, but you plan to enslave entire species. You maintain peace through fear and manipulation. You are not civilized. You are just barbarians with better technology. Dr. Park appeared beside him in the broadcast, her expression calm but her voice cutting. We offered you friendship. We came to you in peace, asking only for the chance to learn and grow alongside you. You responded with contempt and murder. Now you will learn what humanity does when you force us to be what you feared we were. The Shadowblade's weapons remained active. Targeting solutions updating every microsecond, ready to unleash devastation if needed. But the targeting was precise, surgical. If they fired, military targets only. No civilian casualties. Even in their rage, humanity maintained the moral high ground. We have new terms, Hyan Wu said. They are not negotiable. They are not suggestions. They are the price of peace with a species you should never have underestimated. Across the galaxy, billions watched as a human captain dictated terms to an empire. The barbarians, it turned out, had been civilized all along. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to prove it, and that moment had arrived in the skies above a world that had laughed at them. In a ship that should not exist, commanded by people who would not forget. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in its 3,000-year history. Every representative was present, many of them attending remotely from ships hastily departing Valkyrie space. The chamber buzzed with frantic conversations in a dozen languages, none of them friendly. The Valkyrie High Consul sat alone in his section, his crimson armor seeming dull under the lights. Nobody would look at him. Nobody would speak to him. The evidence humanity had released was irrefutable, and every species in the council now knew they had been manipulated for decades. Ambassador Dae-Ho Lee entered the chamber through the main entrance, but he was not alone this time. Captain Ham Woo Kim walked on his right, still in his military uniform, the Shadowblade's command insignia gleaming on his chest. Admiral Sun-hee Choi walked on his left, her admiral's stars catching the light. Behind them came a full military honor guard, soldiers in combat armor. A deliberate statement that humanity was done being dismissed. The sight of military personnel in the civilian council chamber caused a ripple of shock. It violated centuries of protocol. It was aggressive. It was meant to be. The council speaker, an elderly being from a neutral species called the Marant, called for order. His voice was shaky. This is highly irregular. The council does not permit military presence during civilian proceedings. The council does not permit a lot of things, Admiral Choi said, her voice carrying across the chamber. Like genocide, like slavery, like the systematic manipulation of democratic processes. Yet here we are. She took her place at the speaker's podium, a position usually reserved for council members only. Nobody stopped her. The 17 Shadowblade-class vessels orbiting Council space provided excellent motivation for overlooking protocol violations. Haiyan Wu stood beside her, arms crossed, his presence a reminder that humanity's patience had limits. When he spoke, his words were measured but hard as steel. You judged us primitive because we still experienced conflict. You called us barbarians because we hadn't achieved your version of peace. But we learned something during our violent history that you have forgotten. He paused, his eyes sweeping across every representative. Peace without the strength to defend it is just waiting to be conquered. The Lumenth representative, her glow subdued with what might have been shame, floated forward slightly. What humanity has revealed is disturbing. The Valkyries' actions were unknown to us. That's a lie, Dr. Park said, stepping forward with a datapad. We have records of 17 council sessions where evidence of Valkyrie manipulation was presented by other species. You dismissed it every time. You chose not to see because it was convenient. The Lumenth dimmed further, unable to respond. Deho took the podium, the same man who had stood here 3 months ago and begged for membership. But he was not begging now. Humanity has new terms for our relationship with the Galactic Council. These terms are not negotiable. You will accept them, or you will find out exactly how far human engineering has progressed while you were laughing at us. He projected a holographic document into the center of the chamber. Every representative could read it simultaneously, translated into their native languages. First, Deho said, humanity receives full council membership with immediate voting rights. Our observer status is terminated effective immediately. We will have equal voice in all decisions. The Krathan representatives started to click a protest, but Haiyan Wu simply looked at it. The insectoid being's mandibles snapped shut. Somewhere above them, invisible but present, the Shadowblade waited. Second, the Valkyrie Imperium will pay reparations for the destroyed colonies. We calculate the value at 30,000 tons of refined metals, rare minerals, and technology transfers. Payment will begin immediately and continue for the next 20 years. The Valkyrie High Consul finally found his voice. That is outrageous. It will bankrupt our 347 people, Haiyan Wu said quietly. The youngest was 4 years old. Her name was Hana. She wanted to be a doctor. Put a price on that, Consul. Tell me what her dream was worth. The Valkyrie fell silent. Third, Deho continued, humanity receives unrestricted colonization rights throughout the galaxy. We will establish colonies where we choose, when we choose. Any species that interferes will answer to us. Fourth, we propose a mutual defense pact open to any council species that wants true cooperation instead of domination. Member species will defend each other against aggression. We will share technology and resources. We will build something better than what you have now. This caused a stir. Several species began conversing rapidly among themselves. The idea of an alliance not controlled by the Valkyrie was revolutionary. A representative from the Korvath, a species that had been quietly oppressed by Valkyrie economic policies for years, stood up. The Korvath accept these terms and request inclusion in the Mutual Defense Pact. So do the Thanari, said another representative, and the Reshkin. One by one, species began declaring their support. Not all of them, but enough. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting in real time. The Marin speaker looked overwhelmed. This is highly unusual. We should debate these terms, form committees, conduct proper analysis. You have 1 hour, Admiral Choi said flatly. After that, we consider this council's refusal to be an act of hostility. And you really do not want to be hostile to us right now. The vote was called. It was not unanimous. The Valkyrie voted against, of course. A few other species, those who had benefited from Valkyrie corruption, also refused. But the majority voted yes. Humanity's terms were accepted. The Lumenth representative floated forward, her voice still beautiful despite the shame in it. Captain Kim, I must ask, how long have you had this capability? The stealth technology, the weapons, the ships? Hyan Wu glanced at Dr. Park, who smiled coldly. She was the one who answered. We launched our first stealth satellite 40 years ago. We began construction on the Shadowblade 30 years ago. We've been listening to every council session for the past 20 years. We knew exactly what you thought of us. We watched you call us barbarians. We heard you laugh when our people died. She stepped closer to the Lumenth, her small human frame somehow seeming larger than the floating energy being. We simply waited until you revealed who you truly were. We gave you every chance to be better. You chose not to take it. The council chamber erupted in noise again. 40 years. Humanity had been watching for 40 years, learning, preparing, building. Everything the council thought they knew about human capability was wrong. The Krathan representative clicked nervously. How many ships do you have? Enough, Hyan Wu said simply. He did not mention the number. Let them wonder. Let them imagine. Let them fear. Fear would keep them honest. The session ended with humanity as the newest full member of the Galactic Council. Treaties were signed. Reparations were scheduled. The Volcari Imperium, stripped of its secrets and its power, would spend the next generation rebuilding its reputation, if that was even possible. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Daeho paused at the chamber entrance. He looked back at the assembled representatives, these beings who had rejected him so completely just months ago. We came to you in peace, he said. We wanted to be friends. You made us into something else. Remember that. Remember that you created the very thing you feared. He turned and walked out, flanked by soldiers, followed by officers, backed by a fleet that nobody had known existed. On Earth, Engineer Young Mi-Han watched the council vote on a view screen in the lunar facility. A young technician stood beside her, fresh out of the academy, barely old enough to understand what they had built. Did we have to be so aggressive? The technician asked. Show such overwhelming force? Young Mi considered the question. Behind her, in the massive hangar, construction continued on the ships the galaxy did not know about yet. The 18 Shadowblade vessels were just the first wave. 200 more were in various stages of construction. By the time the galaxy realized the true extent of human industrial capacity, it would be far too late to stop it. We showed them 18 ships, she said quietly. We have so many more. Sometimes the best way to avoid war is not to appear peaceful. It's to make war against you unthinkable. The galaxy respects strength. Now they'll have the chance to know our mercy too. The Shadowblade-class vessels began their journey home, fading back into invisibility one by one. They left behind a galaxy that would never again mistake human patience for weakness, human diplomacy for inability, or human restraint for a lack of capability. The barbarians had come to the stars, and the stars would never be the same.